Hi, everybody. In today's solo episode of the Dope Designer Club, I wanted to talk about why I'm doing this podcast. A lot of people have, first of all, we had a great response to the few episodes that we've launched. And a lot of people have been asking me, about the podcast. And also, I think as we've been filming more episodes, we've been crystallizing what our vision is for the podcast. And by us, I mean me and Tanner here. And also we have Ukia, who is our really co-creator of the show as well. And we'll talk more about that. But I think these questions and conversations I've been having have helped me understand more why I'm doing this. I think originally, I love that quote, by the way, critique by creating. Originally, I felt that I needed to give a voice to us creative thinkers that haven't been necessarily represented in our social media, our media in general that we consume. And I think that not just my industry, architects and designers, we have so much to say in changing the world and all these things. But I think there's a lot of really talented, hardworking people that are making such a difference in our communities, in our societies, in our lives that aren't recognized and put to the forefront of what they're doing. And I think a lot of it is mind-blowingly interesting and fascinating. And I love hearing their stories. When I work on projects, I'm always fascinated with the things I'm learning from other people. One of my clients who's also a guest on the show, Aviva Martin, is a civil rights attorney, and what she does is amazing to me. And so we make the spaces that, make these people achieve their vision. But through that, I've learned a lot, just for myself. So I think in terms of the content, I wanted to mix it up a bit. I wanted to disrupt, what people consume on YouTube. We know how to put on eyelashes by now. We know how to apply makeup by now and contour and all these things. But do we know enough about all these other things? So that's a big part of the why. Why the Dope Designers Club? The other, I think, really important reason is that I wanted to also champion these people and, obviously show you what they're doing. I love, when somebody comes on the show and they have an upcoming project. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about their process. Let's talk about what it took them in their life to get to this stage, what they've learned, what we can learn from just that process. I also want to say, there's other people out there that we also don't necessarily recognize as being creative, but that maybe, they interact with other creatives on a daily basis, or they just use creativity in a different way other than applying, paint to a canvas, for example, or what we do as architects. Another why is I wanted to connect. I wanted to connect with these people on a deeper level. I think having these face-to-face conversations does that. I think during COVID, we've all COVID changed, obviously, everything. But one of the things for me that was kind of a huge trauma for that period was it felt like we were all in prison. We were all in our little boxes, doing our own little thing in our own minds and our own dreams. And I think that really took away from everybody's experience, from everybody's life experience, just that dimension of not interacting with other people, not exchanging ideas, not connecting has really affected us, I think, mentally, psychologically, and so forth. So I really wanted to do that for myself, but also showcase it for everybody. the reason we're doing these podcasts in person is that we want to avoid the there is a disconnect through technology. I think, even though I use it on a daily basis with my team, the Zooms, the Google Meets, they all help us achieve something, but not for this. The connection that I want to achieve through these interviews, I think, is much deeper and has to happen in person. And sometimes also, I think that even though, I'm a huge proponent of technology, I actually dislike when people are resistant to technology. I think we have to embrace technology. It's a part of our evolution, I think, as a species. But I also think there are limitations. Like when you're on Zoom, you can't go move this door here. It's like, where are you pointing? Who's talking now? There's like a lot of that, I guess. There's a lot of glitching. There's a lot of other things. Visually, also, I don't want to look at that. Like personally, I don't want to look at a Zoom interface like probably ever in my life. If you need, we're all tired of it. It's boring. It's killing the vibe, dude. It means it's going to be boring. It means it's going to last longer than it's supposed to. And it's ugly. It's ugly. We don't need to see your living room. We don't need to see your bedroom. We don't need to see your knickknacks. We see a lot of that here, but it's also curated and we have beautiful full lighting thanks to our, photographer genius. But I also think that medium is a little bit worn, and I just wanted to do something different, and I wanted to elevate all of this aesthetically, visually, and it took me a really, really long time to calibrate it to what it is, and we're still with Tanner, and he knows how much I'm splitting hairs with all of this, and he's been so gracious in accommodating all of that and working really alongside me to deliver what I wanted, like visually even. And we are in a visual field. Why not make everything that we do beautiful? One of the people that really influenced me to make this podcast is Tom Dioro, the Podfather. And I've been a guest on a number of his podcasts, and he's kind of asked me a few times, hey, Branka, you have so much to say, just because I talk a lot. I talk a lot. And he asked me maybe like a year or two ago, hey, why didn't you make your own podcast? And I'm like, I would love that. But hey, like, I can't just do an audio podcast. It has to be a video. It has to be a video. And then when I said, oh, okay, like that lit up some light bulbs there. What kind of video? And then that's when we get into all this, like, no more Zoom. I also kind of wanted to reflect a little bit on my own journey as a, professional and even like personal journey, which gets to the why I'm doing the podcast. I'm a very private person, even though I seem like an extra what did you call me? Extrovert? Yeah. So I'm extra extroverted on the podcast, but privately, I am very kind of, I think I have been noticing that I have a shell. And so that's, I think, another big challenge. And I think that's perhaps something that has subconsciously delayed even the production of this podcast. But it's something that I had to overcome personally to do this. And I think that a lot of creatives might have this same issue. And I mean, not to make this a therapy session or anything like that. I think it's also important to say that, you gotta overcome some of these, I guess, limitations to really deliver and level up and expand what you're doing. I also want to say, like, people are asking me, like, hey, so are you a podcaster now? I'm like, no, I'm an architect. This is like just a side gig. And I'm still very devoted and committed to, first of all, my company, Plana, but also my profession. I also teach courses on LinkedIn Learning about architecture, about the architectural design process. And that too has been a big part of why I'm doing the podcast. Let me backtrack a little bit. I was also part of the In It Together campaign, and I use LinkedIn quite extensively, and kind of have been one of the faces for that. Backtracking In It Together campaign. Then I was approached to do these educational videos, and I even told them, like, hey guys, like, are you sure? Like, am I really the expert, like the face of like this profession? And also, the types of courses I teach on the platform LinkedIn Learning are not necessarily technical courses. They're courses that teach us soft skills. So relationships, process, architecture practice. I'm in the process of putting together a proposal for quarterly courses that focus just on these soft skills. And so this is something that's not taught in school. It's not something that someone's going to like take you aside and like in your company and tell you like, hey, you really got to like work on like your interpersonal skills here, like here's a book on how to deal with difficult people. Like no one's gonna, but it's such an important part of what we all do. And so that too is a different type of creative thinking. It's not just about architects. So here's a huge stereotype. Architects as white Caucasian males with bellies over 75 people wearing a light blue collared shirt, right? So that's somebody who you expect to see delivering a course. Through teaching these courses that I'm still passionate about, and I don't even think there's enough of these courses on LinkedIn Learning. How can we then further expand the discussion? So during COVID, I filmed a few of these courses at my house, and I was like, ding, 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 maybe I could do this on my own, and ding, 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 wait, what if it's not just me, like talking again? But what if we make this even broader? What if we open this up to even a bigger audience? What if we reach out to people? What if my clients had a platform to talk about their perspective on how it is dealing with architects and their huge egos and all of these things? So I think that was also a big part of like the inception of the podcast. A lot of architects have a niche, right? And so this architect, they just design clinics. And a clinic is, there's a waiting room, there's some admin spaces, there's a corridor with like rooms, exam, patient rooms. But we kind of had a whole other approach to this project. Things are connected. Also, they're a behavioral clinic. They're not a dental clinic. So, I had to learn a lot about what they do, right? So in some ways also, this is a good segue into another thing that I wanted to talk about. And that's the fact that, I'm not becoming a podcaster. The podcast is essentially an extension of my practice, but also an extension of my personality. The way it's an extension of my practice, I think it goes also back to, Ray and Charles Eames. Ray and Charles Eames, who are, the Eames chair. Yes, thank you. Everybody has, everybody who cares about high design has one. I have one. Yeah. And the lounge chair, yes. But actually, I actually really admire Ray and Charles Eames. I think they are one of the, quintessential modernist designers that really changed our world through how they thought about design, Everyday objects, before, generally speaking, before, modernism in LA is a big deal. And there's a focus, I think, that I want to highlight, that we are in LA. And I love when people talk about LA. And that's where I operate. There's entertainment. There's aerospace here. LA is, I think, where modernism started on a grand scale. And that changed the aesthetic, the kind of visual language, like globally. This little movement that started here was so important architecturally. I mean, in so many other ways too. Design, Ray and Charles Eames. But back to Ray and Charles Eames. Ray and Charles Eames were these designed. They designed furniture. They designed their own house. They were a couple. But I go back to them because they also worked in several different media, right? So they designed toys, they designed chairs, they designed, other patterns, objects. And I think as architects also, I'm an architect, like we can expand, and say you're a photographer, you can expand that, and I think this show is about that. And so for me, I've expanded into video. Now I'm making videos. I'm talking to friends who are directors. We're talking about shots. I'm seeing things differently, right? And just this has even opened up my mind. I've learned so much about photography, cameras, sound, technology. What's aperture? I didn't know what an aperture. Now I use that even in my architecture, how I represent my project. So I think there's always opportunities to learn. And I think this is a way for me to learn and expand my world. And just like architecture is there to elevate your, life experience and to, we're making spaces to further other people's visions. This is doing the same thing, only not with bricks and mortar. It's doing it through these videos. And I think that's so important. I think that, again, I'm going to go back to what I said in the beginning. So many people are doing such incredible things. Like, let's elevate them. Let's propagate that. Let's get that energy out there. Let's make other people who are not in LA, who are not in architecture, let's make them also a part of us. So I talked a little bit about, being a private person, whatever, and leveling up and expanding my practice and having the podcast be kind of an extension of my practice. But I also wanted to talk a little bit about how this is exposing me and, not in a self-promotion, like shameless self-promotion, but yes, that too. But also, I think that as architects and creatives, we sometimes tend to hide behind our work. And I know for myself, there's a psychology to that. We have to appear as these professionals all the time. What we share about our process, we don't actually even share that much of our process, even though my own practice, we're so process oriented. And that's why I want this to be super casual. I want this to be not just dope and cool, which, is, a part of it, but I wanted to make people feel like they're a part of the process. Nothing here is perfect, although it kind of is. These flowers weren't here. The flowers weren't here yesterday. Actually, they were because we filmed another episode. But it's sort of curated, but I think it's important to show process. I think this podcast is about process. I know that in my work, I don't share, even my sketches, they kind of have to be perfected before I share them. And I do that consciously. And so then it's process, but it's not really process. It took me 5 iterations to get to that messy sketch. So it looks cool, but still it's not a rendering. And I think we do that a lot. I think, our profession is a very formal profession. And I think that's true for a lot of these other professions. And I just want to loosen that up. I want people to open up and relax. I want to do that for myself. And I think that whole vibe will make us be better. And I know it'll make me, and I call my clients, I call them dude sometimes, but I don't do that. I censor myself in these conversations. And actually, Tanner pointed that out. I call him dude probably 20 times in the course of an hour, and that's me, but I censor myself. The other thing I want to talk about is mentoring, and that's something that I love to ask my guests. I'm always curious about who are their mentors or people who have influenced them. I think that, if you were to ask me that, and how it relates to that podcast. First of all, I love hearing other people's stories, and the stories they bring to the podcast also enrich, my life. And I think mentors or like even your parents, like I love hearing those types of stories. And I think also we all have that opportunity to be mentors, like for others. For example, Tanner, you could be a mentor to somebody who's just starting to think about photography or that career. So I want to say a few people. When I love being mentored. I love that. Like, I think that I'm one of those people. I'm very teachable, and I think that's a character trait. There's people who are teachable. It's like a first child syndrome too. Like we really listen. But I had a lot of mentors, and I'm so grateful. And I love that. I've learned so much from you, Tanner. Like this is what's happening, right? A few people I want to highlight is obviously my mother, who's like the only person watching this show anyways. Obviously, your parents are always the first people that you see, and a lot of people on the show talk about their parents. But I've had, mentors. My mentor from Hawaii, when I lived in Hawaii for a while, I kind of grew up there, became an adult, so to speak. I still keep in touch with him today, and he's gotten older over the years, but I've learned so much from him. For example, when you have a problem, you draw a circle. Oh, how easy. When you have a problem, you sit down and you draw a circle. It's such an architect thing, right? You draw a circle. There's something so wise in that. Think about it. I'll just leave it at that. I think also one of my early mentors is Katie McNeil from Group 70. This is like the first firm that I worked at, and she was also my mentor for my doctoral thesis. Surprise, I have a doctorate. I don't know if you knew that. Fancy. So she was somebody I really admired. She was very established. She was very professional. She had a really good delivery. Her language was on point, and she was somebody I looked up to for a long time. And one of the things that she taught me that stuck with me to this day is that, yes, you can draw and you can be a great architect and you can be excellent at these meetings and all these things. And you collaborate, but how do you give back to the profession? And this is a way for me to give back to the profession. I've, not just the teaching part, and I've actually volunteered a lot in my life. But I think this is another way that we contribute back. Through LinkedIn Learning, one of the courses I did was on process. That course has been watched over 200,000 times. So I kind of am an expert, even though I sometimes behave like I'm 12. But I'll be discovered I'm actually, I actually have a daughter who's 10. And sometimes we're just at the same level, and we are who we are, right? And I think it's also about that is about letting loose, I think. But giving back is important. It's you can't just take. You can't just because it doesn't further the profession. So if nobody gave back, everything would just stagnate. And so I think this is a way to kind of mobilize and have everything incrementally move forward. And so it's kind of like a civilizational kind of pull, if that makes sense. So here's back to the LinkedIn Learning stuff. What is a huge motivator for me is a while ago, this course, I think in the first year that it aired, I haven't been keeping that detailed of a track for it. I've been getting messages from girls, like a girl from Nigeria, saw my course and was like, oh my God, this I can be an architect. It's a huge impact. Or New Guinea, somebody contacted me. It was also a young woman who was considering, even entering this field. It doesn't matter whether it's architecture, but there's definitely places in this world where there aren't necessarily universities, and they're only channel of like finding out about something like that, or us modeling to them, is through something like this. And I think that I'm getting goosebumps. Like, that's a big deal. That's a huge deal. Something like this can change someone's life. Somebody can see Ariva and be like, oh my God, like, yeah, that's what I want to be. You shouldn't live next to UCLA. Your uncle shouldn't be a world-renowned architect or director or what? Oh, never did. For you to know that you can do this too, And I think everybody, that's my final thing. Everybody has this spark. Everybody has this spark. And we just have to inspire people. We just have to encourage them to look for it and to not be afraid to show it. So I recently got in touch with my friend Mark, and I want to say this because you can do more than one thing. And his whole thing was like, he was after college, so after we graduated from architecture, we're the same age. He's a little younger, but we're the same age. We're the same age. He's younger, but we're the same age. So we graduated at the same time. And after school, like, I immediately, started working in architecture. And then I'm a total diehard for what I do. But he decided to take a break from architecture, and he had this really cool rock band, and they were like they were dope. They were dope. No, they were, and they still are. But like, they had a tour in Europe and North America, and then they had another tour in the Midwest. Somehow they were really big there, and they had an Asia tour, and he was doing cool stuff. So modern. You should look it up. Yeah. Anyway, so after a while, he moves to Australia, and he's like, no, I want to focus on architecture. And we talked about this yesterday. People would ask him about the music, but then like, they wouldn't give him the job, like, because like, hey, they thought he was an interesting person, but they never talked about architecture. And so he was like, wait a second, I can't do two things. So he stopped talking about music, and he totally is not doing music anymore. And so now he's like, almost 20 years later or 15 years later, is saying, I want to do this. This is a really big part of who I am. And he's kind of regretted the fact that, like, his kind of impression or how he thought about he should be as an architect is just this one thing. And I want to kind of encourage people that you can be more than one thing. You can be in a rock band and be an architect, and just like so many other things, right? Because we're not just like, I don't think we're designed to be like a robot and just do one thing our entire life. Can you imagine a whole career span? How long? I also I don't really believe in retirement, because I'm really passionate about what I do. So I feel like I'm going to do this until I'm still kicking. Plus, I'm much younger too. Back to the podcast, I think the way we see all these multifaceted people, work and operate, and that's something to learn also. But what are we working on? So I think the special needs network work for me personally has been extremely like fulfilling, not just from a creative standpoint, but also from the social justice standpoint. And I think that's another aspect. We were just talking about how things can be multifaceted, I guess. So I think as an architect, I could have just been focused on like, let's make it beautiful, let's make it this, let's make it that. But it really, this place is not just a clinic. It's a symbol. It's a mechanism to uplift a whole community. And that really kind of means a lot to me. And just personally, I'm going to be like Kelly now. Personally, I think that's something I care about. I mean, we've also helped them design training centers, which are like these are like hubs. And these are not just underserved communities. These are also, children with special needs. Like there's all these organizations that are, trying to find maybe a cure for autism, for example. But hey, what's happening in the meantime? Like maybe the cure is like cancer. Like, will it happen in our lifetime? Maybe yes, maybe no. But what's happening in the meantime? How are we helping these people? Like it can't just be limited to like what's happening in some lab somewhere. There's people now that need our help and our involvement and our care. And I think that's something I've discovered and something that I've been very passionate about. Yeah. Oh, there's so much we can do now. Yeah. Education. People with special needs, they need to learn like skills like how to fold laundry, how to, maybe some professional skills, what careers they can be a part of. They can also do like all kinds of things. Like in our center, we have a place where they can make podcasts of their own. And we've been very kind of mindful of that and involved us thinking about it differently and out of the box. And this is where, communication, collaboration, and connection and care really, really come into play. It's a whole spectrum. It's like a whole spectrum of different needs. They can be mental, they can be physical. It's all different kinds of age groups, and we all address it in this one place. Nothing like this exists, by the way, now. And this is the first of its kind in Los Angeles, in the region, and we hope more centers like this can happen even nationally. And it's such a cutting edge, I think, process and project to be involved in. Truly. And I'm really proud of it. I'm really proud of what we've done. And it's actually, I was there on Wednesday, 2 days ago, and we were doing the final punch list. This is after years. Like we were there at the very concept when the building wasn't even there, and through COVID, all these delays. I mean, it takes an army of people, and so it's finally there. A final punch list. We're coordinating our furniture deliveries, and it's a really amazing milestone, and I'm super excited about it. Yeah, it's everything that I'm about, really, because it's like. It's design. It's it's kind of come full circle. Yeah. But a big part of it is winging it, and I think sometimes you just have to wing it, otherwise it doesn't happen. And I'm torn, I think, from over planning and perfecting something, but at the same time. You can't always achieve that perfection, and then you just kind of have to start doing it, and we're doing it, and we're making a lot of mistakes, and we're also making great progress. And the things that I do to prepare is I blow dry my hair. I blow dry the hair. I do my makeup in about 3 minutes because I've watched all those tutorials. So I've been educated in that, and I think I do spend a lot of mental energy just like kind of thinking about all these things. Like the whole point of the podcast is creative thinking, so I always try to focus on that, and I try to see, like, in my own research about whoever the guest is, how can I bring that forward a little bit more, and I think a lot of times people don't even believe me. Like, why do you want to interview me? Like, I don't even I don't think, well, I think a lot of people have dismissed creativity in their lives completely. Like my first guest was Vuk, right? And he's one of my best friends. He is old. Even though we're the same age, he is older. You know what I mean? But I want to say he was like, wait, I'm not creative. I'm like, yeah, you are. Like, you're cool. Like, you run a company, you deal with creative people. Your entire family is creative. By the way, like, I actually really wanted to I wanted to interview your daughter, but she wasn't available. You're here. Let's do you. No. No, I really try to kind of think about them and what they do. And I also try to highlight their upcoming projects. So I try to maybe get some background on that. And I try to connect with them before we do the interview. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. We can only pursue perfection, even though we never achieve it. And I think that is worth it. I think that's totally worth it. I think there's this thing about doing that is maybe even better than achieving perfection. You doing something is maybe that's all it is. Like, you and I, just in kind of learning to work together, there was this moment where like our sound failed, right? Like we failed, right? But you know what? The fact that you cared meant so much to me, because I knew, like, hey, we're just doing it. And yeah, just trust the process. Trust the process. And we've accomplished so much, I think, in this short time. I'm personally super excited about this podcast. I'm super excited about our upcoming guests. We're going to have contractors, directors, artists, all these amazing people that are upcoming. And it's a weekly episode also. It's a lot of pressure. Time to wrap up. So we talked about the whys. We've talked about the format. We've talked about our guests. Learning, winging it. I guess to wrap up, I want to say it again. I'm super excited. I'm super excited we're doing this. I'm super excited we got this far, even though it's like, I don't know, episode 4 or 5. I think it's like, it feels like a movie. It feels like we've made all these movies, really. We're getting better, I think. But I'm super excited. And I hope that this does clarify a bunch of things so that I don't have to answer them anymore. And I could just direct people here for all these answers. And yeah, I'm excited to film more of these and to connect more. And yeah. Let's meet some dope designers.
That was a really good episode,
I think so too. I think this is how we should do it. And I think we should do this every 4 or 5 episodes. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm down for that.
And it could be a different theme. It can be something that's happening.